All right, welcome everybody to our EnviroHouse webinar. Today we're talking about the benefits of shade trees. And for those of you just joining, we'll let everybody populate here. We got a few attendees still showing up here. Thank you all for joining us on this beautiful rainy day, my favorite kind of days. My name's Gator. I'm here with Janda and John Wilkowiak. Wilkowiak, right? Sorry about that. And we're going to be talking about shade trees, which don't seem like you might need them right now, but hey, it's always good to have trees, more and more trees. So as you guys get in there, I'm going to start talking about ways that you can participate. As an attendee, your video and audio are currently turned off, so you can only hear me talking, and sorry about that. You can hear John and Janda talking in a little bit, and you can participate. If you look at the bottom of your screen, your Zoom meeting, there is a Q&A button, a polls button, and a chat button, and you can select those. The chat will come up and you can talk to each other and me. There's a little drop down menu that says 2 panelists. You can change that to 2 panelists and attendees. I'll say hi, hello everyone. And you can engage through the chat and have conversations on the side there. If you have any questions you want to ask us, you can do it in there. Or you can hit the Q&A button, and that'll bring up a place where you can ask a question there that I'll ask to our expert, and or if you have a question for the EnviroHouse for Janda, and we'll answer them on the air. Hopefully, I'll prompt the question to our panelists here. So, if you'd like to all chime in at chat and say hi, you're welcome to. And let's see, we're also going to have polls where we're going to ask you questions throughout. Let me get that out of there. We're going to ask you guys questions throughout this. Let's see. I'm having a little, there we go. So I'll start here. First poll question, how did you hear about us today? So this is a way you guys can participate while you're listening. You can answer this question. So if you want to try to vote right now, where did you hear about us? Did you hear about us on Facebook or another social media, Enviro News email list, EnviroHouse Workshop website, workplace email, friend or family member, TPU events, or other? And when there is an other, you can go ahead and type your answer in the chat. Like Gator emailed me, like that would be my answer. I emailed myself. So go ahead and click how you heard about us today. It'll help us really figure out if our advertising and marketing is working so that we can get this to the people who want to see this stuff. So thank you for participating. I'll give you about 10 more seconds. Okay. And we will have poll questions coming up throughout. We're going to ask you questions about trees and whatnot. Some good information is going to be distributed today, so stay tuned. All right, I'm going to give you just one more second here. Let's see. Well, everybody who answered said the workplace email. Excellent. So we'll take a look at that a little bit on our own. So before I continue to blather on further, I'm going to pass it over to Janda from the EnviroHouse. She'll help you guys move on to the next phase of this. So enjoy. Thanks for tuning in.
And thanks from me, and welcome to another webinar. I've forgotten, this is probably about our 5th or 6th, 7th one. We don't have another one planned right now until October 14th, but we may slip another one in there before then. The one on the 14th is on a Wednesday from 4 to 5 as well, and it will be on home heating with heat pump systems, but also this time it will include gas furnaces and other kinds of heating. So Tacoma Power will be presenting that with a contractor and bring you lots of good information on heating. We are still doing our how-to videos. You can get those by searching on EnviroHouse how-to playlist. That's on the City of Tacoma channel. And we have other webinars planned, so stay tuned. This information is going out through EnviroNews listserv, among other sources, Tacoma Sustainability webpage, and Facebook page. So if you don't have access to those, email ehas@cityoftacoma.org and we can provide that to you. That will also be in the email that goes out to all the participants after this. You will get a message that has some links and some information and give you some more opportunities to learn more about what we're doing. So with that, I will turn this over to John to lead us through all this great information about shade trees. This is a brand new presentation, so lots of good information here. So thank you, and John, take it away.
All right. Okay, let's see if I can get this quick. All right, I hope everybody can hear me okay. I just want to thank you all for participating and coming. Today is a wonderful day to think about trees. You know, it's been pretty dry, but now the weather and the soil is starting to get a little loose. We're all thinking about what a great time it is to get trees planted. And this is just an example of a really beautiful tree that would do very well in our area called the Katsura and is available at local nurseries. Okay, let's see this next one. So, whoops, looks like we got our second polling question is popped up there. Andrew, do you want to do that one right now?
Sorry, I guess I jumped the gun there a little. Sorry.
That's okay. All right. So today we're going to talk about enhancing your home with shade trees. And again, my name is John Zelkova. I'm a conservation operations manager, but I'm also a certified arborist and forester. And so I really love trees, and this is always a great opportunity for me to speak about trees. So what we're going to share today is why we plant trees. We got to know the anatomy. Diversity is a good thing. Location, location, location. What trees will do best on my property? Buying a high quality tree, planting tips for success, and some tree maintenance 101. So why are we encouraging the planting of shade trees? Heck, we're a utility. Why do we want them around our wires? The answer is really, we want to do it from two standpoints. First standpoint is we're partnering with the city of Tacoma to increase the tree canopy level here in Tacoma from the current 19% to 30% here in the next 10 years. Trees clean our air and our water. They help us save energy by shade. They benefit wildlife. They increase property values. They contribute to our health and reduce crime. They reduce the effects of climate change. So let's talk about the anatomy of a shade tree. So I want you to think about a tree being like a wine glass on a dinner plate. It's tall and thin and then widens out at the top, but it's thin at the base, and that's the root system. And our concept is, I want you to think about the top of the tree being called the crown. That's where the life of the tree is really happening, because that's where the leaves, that's where the needles, that's where photosynthesis takes place. The trunk is like the wine glass stem. It's holding everything up. And then the feeder roots are kind of the base of the wine glass on that dinner plate, going actually very shallow. Most root systems in trees do not go deeper than about 18 to 24 inches down into the soil. So they're not really digging down into the ground looking for water. They're kind of existing for water along the surface. So it's really important for us to protect both the permanent roots, the ones you can kind of see next to the root area, but also those feeder roots that just are right underneath the soil. So uniformity can be a beautiful thing. I think many of us may remember streets, and there are some streets in Tacoma where there are trees that are with the same species, and it looks magnificent. But there are also many dangers. And this is just this little green bug. It's called the emerald ash borer, and I'm originally back from Iowa, and just before we left Iowa about 12 years ago now, the basic concept was, you know, we had lots of ash trees, and they were used very heavily because they grew well. They did a lot of shade replacement. But this little green bug came in from China and is now killing all of them. And so it's a big important thing to not have a uniform street planting so you don't lose them all. So in the world of living things, such as trees, diversity is a good thing. So I think if you take a look at the park here, that one park with the big shade tree happens to be up in Victoria, and the other one happens to be here in Pierce County, you can just see that diversity of trees can make a thing not only look beautiful, but also very healthy and safe. Location, location, location. Where you plant your trees will really help determine what benefits you're going to get them. And if you think about here where we live in the Northwest, here in the Puget Sound region, we really get the best shade value on the southwest or southeast side of our home. But now, you know, with drainages and the way your houses are lined up to the side of the hills and other things can be completely different. So it's really important to almost watch the sun over your house and just see where the shade is going and what parts you want to shade and what other parts you may not. So obviously you may not want a lot of shade over your garden area during a certain part of the day, but you may want it over the part of your home during the warmer part of the day towards the end of the day. So just keep that in mind. Think about location, location, location. You got to give trees room to grow. I know they seem cute and small at some times, but they can get obviously very, very big. And larger trees can take up space. And if you really want to get the benefit of them, you really have to look at the label, do a little research to figure out what size of tree is it going to get? How big will it be? Will it be too close to my house? Will it provide the shade and the value that I want? Nothing would make, I think, any of us cry more than planting a tree that took 50 years to grow and to find out whoever purchased our property after we're gone ended up cutting the tree down because it was too close to their house or it did something they didn't want. My hope is the redwood tree that I planted here 2 years ago on my property is going to live here for 100+ years. That's my goal. So shade is your best energy friend, and that's really why Tacoma Power is looking at shade trees. We see about 43% of our customers having residential air conditioning. Tacoma people would have that many, but the reality is more and more customers are getting air conditioning. And that increases the cost and increases the power that they use during the summer, which is generally our lower time. But generally, most of our power is used during heating season. So the concept is if you can shade areas around your home, including the actual air conditioning units with adequate space, shading different times of your property at different times, you can make the property be cooler and you can make the equipment run more efficiently. So here's our second polling question, Gator. Your shot.
All right, here we go. Let's take a look. First question, well, the question and second was, what is the state tree of Washington? As you can see, your choice is Douglas fir, western hemlock, apple, big leaf maple, red alder, or other. You can put that in the chat if you think it's a different tree. This is the apple state. They fight for the apple cup every year. The answer might surprise you. I did go to the evergreen state, so I imagine it is the evergreen state, so it's got to be one of those evergreens is what I think. So, all right, we'll give you about 20 more seconds. Make sure you get in there and vote. Vote early, vote often, as everyone keeps saying, right? Is that the, you can only vote once, just kidding. All right, I'll give you about 10 more seconds to vote. We got about half of the people attending voting, so maybe the other half will jump in and vote. All right, there you go, a couple more. What do you think? Is it apple, western hemlock, Douglas fir? All right, I'm gonna stop the polling. John, what's the answer?
The answer is western hemlock is the state tree of Washington. Douglas fir, by gosh, that's Oregon, folks. You got to keep in mind, you have to keep your Washington and Oregon separated. Douglas fir is Oregon's, and western hemlock is Washington. So Oregon, Douglas fir, western hemlock, Washington. Thank you. Okay.
Excellent.
Cool.
Good job.
All right. So let's go to the next question. So some things to think about when choosing to plant trees in your yard. The first one is, do you want a deciduous or an evergreen? Okay, a tree that's kind of cone bearing, it has needles. How tall will that tree get? How big will it get? How will the canopy spread? Will it fit in my yard in the future? The form and shape can be important because you don't want it to hide your home, you want it to enhance your home and your property. Growth rate. Oftentimes when I've worked with people on planting trees, they'll come to me and say, which ones can grow fast? Well, unfortunately, sometimes fast-growing trees have weaker wood, which means they could be more susceptible to storm damage. The type of soil you have, the amount of sun, and the moisture in the soil all play very critical parts. Here where I live in Northeast Tacoma, the soil in my front yard is different than the soil in my backyard. It's really bizarre. And I think it was just the way the house was built and compacted. I have trees that do really well in my front yard and they will not do well in the back, and vice versa. Pests. Now, you heard about the emerald ash borer, so that's kind of like maybe ash trees would not be a good one to plant, even though they're not here now. Do you want trees that have fruit or not? Sometimes people do. One thing with fruit, you may have to do other things, like you may have to do some type of spray or care to make sure the fruit stays edible. And it has to be hardy for our zone. So going back one more time on the utility component, when you're thinking about planting, we want you to look up at wires and trees and other things. We want you to look down to figure out where the underground utilities could be, including your pavement or driveway or sidewalks. We want you to look around at other areas to make sure you're doing safe things, okay? Because again, nothing's worse than planting a tree on a place that may require to be removed. So hardiness zones. So the concept of what a hardiness zone is basically the coldest temperature that an area has over time. So it's kind of like what would be the maximum extreme low of temperature that you could see. So if you were in northern Minnesota, you know, you're in that 30, 40 degree below zero type thing. But if you're here in Western Washington, we're in zone 8. And if we get below 20 degrees, it's a very rare occurrence. So what we can have in our area, you can see can almost match with some of the stuff that could grow farther south, because our climate is so mild and Mediterranean. That gives us a tremendous opportunity to plant a diverse number of trees, which again, diversity is a good thing, okay? So yes, I have seen palm trees and other things that can grow. I'm not saying that's what I would plant in my yard, but that opportunity is there, okay? So sometimes you'll hear people talk about native trees versus introduced or exotic trees. So a native tree would be one that's here naturally. So Douglas fir, western hemlock, red alder, big leaf maple, those are all examples of trees that are native to our site. And I'll tell you right now, if I have my opportunities, I always look first at my native, but it has to be adapted to the soil and the conditions that we have. So in an area where it's been little disturbed, sometimes a native tree will do really, really well, but it may not do very well in your yard, mainly because the soils may have been compacted or altered. It may be not adapted to some pest problems that we have. So you may have to look at the opportunities that introduced species have. They can be adapted to our climate. They may be better adapted to compacted soils. But there is one kind of caveat to introduced species. They can be invasive, which means they can grow beyond where we want them to grow with seed and other things. So always have to kind of keep that in mind. Just think about blackberry bushes, how they can go and spread very easily, okay? Not native, they have spread because they're invasive. So there's a plus and minus. It's always good to do a little research about your property, the conditions, and also what options and what things are actually available, okay? So here's our third polling question, Gator.
Okay, let me get that started here. Here we go. Our question is, what is the most urgent tree care need in your community or neighborhood? Do you think it's planting more trees, dangerous or dying trees that might fall, properly maintaining existing trees, so through pruning, watering, and whatnot, teaching people how to care for trees, not sure, or something other that we didn't list here? So go ahead and vote now. Give everyone about another 30 seconds to vote, so jump in there, make sure you get a chance. John, I was going to talk about invasive species a little bit, like, yes, a blackberry is invasive, but I do love blackberry pie and jam. So, it's that, yeah. There is that trade-off, right?
there is. And the concept would be is, can you keep it in your area, control it? English ivy is another example of something that grows as great ground cover, but it can be very invasive if you don't keep it kind of in your area of control.
Now, you did say you planted a redwood, is that correct?
I did.
Now,
it is not native to Western Washington. It's really native to Northern California and a small part of Oregon. But our climate here allows redwoods to grow and thrive very well. And I've seen giant sequoias growing near our TPU campus and other areas. And I just thought it was really a cool tree, and I wanted to try it. And you know what? It is thriving in my backyard.
It is. Yeah, I'm from Northern California, so I'm all about the redwoods. And the city of Tacoma just planted some at, I think it's Fireman's Park, some of the giant sequoias. So, all right. I'm going to end our polling here. Let's take a look at the results and see what everybody had. Oh, there you go. Dangerous or dying trees that might fall, and properly maintaining existing trees are the big heavy hitters there. So,
okay, good.
Right.
Well, that's good to know. All right. Well, let's just talk about some tree selections. There are so many choices out there. And we'll talk about at the end of the program about a tree coupon program that the city of Tacoma, Tacoma Public Utilities, and the Puyallup Watershed are working on together, where you can get a coupon for $30 off a tree starting October 1st. We'll talk about how you can get that. But these are some of the trees that we thought would be really great diversity trees in our communities here in the greater Tacoma area. Some are a combination of exotic and some are a combination of native. So an example, for fall color, a vine maple is actually a native plant. A dawn redwood, which is not the same as the coastal redwood, is an introduced species. And then you can go down and see if you like trees that have flowers. A dogwood, there are some native dogwoods here and there are some that are not. Serviceberry is another one. You can see some of the shade trees that are there, and you know, some of them sound very exotic. And one of my favorite ones is called the hardy rubber tree, and it's really kind of a cool thing. And then trees of interest that have like really colorful bark or characteristics, and you can see some there. So there's lots of opportunities. So I'm just going to share some pictures of some of the trees that I really think are really underplanted in our area and could really gain some real perspective. So this is a serviceberry. It is a smaller tree that probably goes about a little less than 20, 25 feet tall. It's a broader tree, so you can see that its crown spread is going to spread a little bit farther. So you need to have a wide area where you're going to plant it. This is called a Kousa Dogwood. And in the spring, it is one of the most beautiful trees I've seen. It is an exotic tree. It is from Japan, but it is a really hardy one that does very well with no disease problems that sometimes can affect dogwoods. The Goldenrain tree, and these are very common in our community, has these little kind of like little paper, like little lanterns almost on them, yellow flowers, and it's a very well-grown tree with nice shade values. The Ginkgo. The Ginkgo is one of the oldest known living things in the world. It's probably in the, goes back to prehistoric times. There are leaves that were found in fossils and other types of things. It is native to China, but has done very well. There are male and female Ginkgos. One of the greatest things about the Ginkgo that I love, if you don't like to rake leaves over and over again, well, the Ginkgo drops all its leaves at one time. One day it'll all be there, one day they'll all be yellow, and a couple days later, they're all on the ground, so you only have to rake it once. But you do want to make sure you get the male Ginkgo and not the female Ginkgo, okay? The female Ginkgo has sort of a smelly fruit, but some people really find other values for that fruit. The dawn redwood is a little different than the coastal redwood. Again, it is one introduced from China, but it has really great features. It's very adaptable to compacted soils. So it does really well in areas where the soil does not drain very well. So luckily my coastal redwood in my backyard does really well because it's draining very well. But if I had to plant one in the front, I probably would have done the dawn redwood, okay? And this one is called the European Beech. And people may be familiar with this street. This is up there at Wright Park. You can see how beautiful and the shade values that these trees have, nice and stately. Okay. And then the red oak. The red oak offers tremendous opportunities for wildlife habitat. This is the kind of the ones that the squirrels really like because of the abundant acorns that it has. They're not messy, that they happen every year. Some years heavier than others, but in the fall, obviously one of the most beautiful trees. And being a guy from Iowa, it's one of my favorite trees. Zelkova. A Zelkova is sort of a, I want to say, a Eurasian elm tree, and it's a good way to put it. It is not, does not get Dutch elm disease. So if you're from the eastern United States or grew up during that time, we used to have all kinds of American elms, and they were all lost to an introduced species called Dutch elm disease. And that basically went through an area because some of the streets were all planted with that species. Zelkova has this ability to grow, have similar kind of vase-shaped forms that those American elms have. So it's a very hardy, well-grown tree. Some trees to avoid, and I'm going to tell you why we avoid them. So American elm, cottonwood, red maple, Norway maple, European hornbeam, sweet gum, ash species, the locust species, and many of the pears and plums, and we'll talk why. So before we do the polling question, let me just do this real quick, Gator. So here's a sweet gum. What a beautiful tree, very heavily planted in our community. But you notice it gets those little balls, seed balls at the end there. So obviously if there's lots of trees of the same species, it makes it susceptible to some type of disease or loss. So obviously we want to minimize that. We need to diversify away from planting sweet gum and plant other species. But also if this happened to be, those little balls were on near a sidewalk or that type of thing, it's a thing that people could slip and fall on. Can we go polling question number 4?
Absolutely. I would have to say those little spiky balls, my friends and I used to throw them at each other too. They're not.
There you go.
Fun, so.
Yeah.
So here's our next question. When was the last time you planted a tree? Was it less than a year ago, between 1 and 5 years? More than 5 years ago? You've never planted a tree? You don't recall? Or maybe there's another option in there, like I'm planting one right now while I'm watching this video. So go ahead.
This would be great to do it. Yeah, would be a great day to do it.
Soil will get nice and soft after this rain, right? And just
exactly. It's a lot easier to dig when it's a little bit softer.
Yeah. My daughter, one of my daughter's names is Scarlet, and so we would definitely plant a scarlet oak if that's I saw that on your list.
It is. It's a beautiful tree.
So I'll give everyone a few more seconds. Yeah, so thanks for that list. That'll help us. We're thinking about planting some trees coming up. All right, give everyone a few more seconds here to vote. Give you about 5 seconds. 4. Last few, just a few haven't voted. Go ahead and vote now. And ending polling, 3, 2, 1. All right, let's take a look. Here you go.
Ah, well, good. Excellent. So we got some tree planters in our group, and that's excellent. Okay.
Nice.
The others that didn't get a chance to vote, we want to turn you on to trees, okay? So that's great. Thank you. So I want to do some buying basics. So just like any time you go to purchase anything, you really have to have a little understanding of what you're trying to get and what models of trees are out there. So knowing what type of tree you want, the species, is one thing, but you really want to know what model you're looking at. When I talk about model, I'm talking about what type of container the tree is grown in. So generally when you go to a nursery, it's really in 4, and there's one that I don't have on there, but usually the tree can be balled and burlapped. You can see the one there in the upper corner. It can be in a container. And by the way, sometimes trees are bare root and put in a container, and others are container grown. So we're going to talk about that. And sometimes they're bare root with no soil or packaging on them. And the 4th way, which doesn't show here on this slide, is called a grow bag. It's basically a fiber bag that makes up kind of a container. The root system's a little bit more compact. The fiber bag contains the soil and is taken off when you're planting it. The 3 things to keep in mind about these types of buying basics is a little bit about transportation, how you're going to get it home. Do you need it delivered? Is it the type of thing you can plant or somebody else has to plant? A balled and burlap tree of some size can weigh up to several hundred pounds. Okay? A containerized tree can still be quite heavy. Bare root trees really are hard to find at times, but they also require almost immediate planting. You cannot let them dry out. The trees generally come in like wrapped up like this. They're generally in wholesale nurseries and brought, tied with tags and twine. There's a stake on them. there's wrap. And those are the types of things that need to be taken off as you move the tree from place to place, but they really help in the transportation of the tree from the nursery garden center back to your home, okay? So picking out the best tree at the nursery. I've looked at many trees at the nurseries around our area, and they all have really fine, good-looking stock. I've never been disappointed in the growing stock at any of the nurseries that I've worked with here. But there are things that always I look for when I'm looking for a high-quality tree. I really want one that has a good, strong form with well-spaced attached branches. I want to make sure the trunk is free of wounds or damage, and the root system appears to be adequate, you know, for the tree system. And you can kind of tell that way if it's sort of like off balance with just a really tiny root with a 10-foot tree on it, probably not enough roots, okay? So the bigger the root system, sometimes the better, but not always. When the trees are removed from the ground and made available at a nursery or put in a container sometimes, a large amount of the roots are lost. And so we try to minimize that root damage. So again, look for that nice straight form, no wounds or damage, and look for good quality roots, okay? Before you plant, this is the big one, okay? You gotta call 811. I know we all believe we know that there are no wires running through our front yard or our backyard. Surprise, surprise, they're there. And unfortunately, you can be doing damage to your underground utilities. There can be fines and other things if you don't do it. So it's worth it. At least I always do it 5 days in advance. I always call 811, mark out where my sites are going to be. They're really interested if you have the GPS, and maybe you can use your phone to give it to them, but they really obviously want your address and where the trees are going to be planted. So I take either a wire stake or maybe a wooden stake, paint it kind of where I'm thinking about planting the tree, tell them where it is, and then they'll come out at no cost to verify where the utilities are, okay, so that you can minimize it. It's a free service and it's a safety service. And from a utility, we really encourage you to do it.
John, I'm going to add a little here that I've called recently 811, and they take calls 24 hours a day. So if you're thinking about it, like right now, oh, I'm thinking about it right now, you can call now, you can call at 2 in the morning, and someone will answer and make that call, because it is very, very important. Call before you dig, right?
Exactly. But again, make sure you have it lined out where the site is, so when they come out, they're already looking for them. So like I said, I take white paint and I take a little wooden stake, put it in the ground, paint it white and say it's at this location. And then they can quickly find it, because you'll have people from different utilities come and double check their utility situation. So I always like to tell people we want to plant a $10 tree into a $100 planting hole. One of the most problems that most people have is they try to jam a tree that's beautiful, they spent lots of money on it, into a tiny hole. The whole idea is that soil is kind of tight all around it, and you want to make sure that the tree is perfectly balanced. And so we want to spread that hole out and make it extra wide so that the root system can grow into soft, easy soil, okay, once we get there. The second tip I want to do, so first of all, I want to remove all the packaging. We want to take that planting hole soil. And I always put a tarp on one side of where my planting hole is, and I put it all on that tarp. And the reason being is all that soil is going to go back in the hole. So if it's like all scattered around, you got to rake it in, it makes quite a bit of mess and makes the process a lot more time consuming. You place the tree in the hole, make sure that the trunk flare is above the ground. You look for roots that are circling, remove them, cut them. You fill the hole with soil and gently pack it, and you water the tree immediately after planting. So how big should the planting hole be? So obviously you can see here we're looking at measuring the size of the root system and where that root system is visible. So sometimes you have to dig down into the container or even into the root ball, and you have to pull that container down and remove it and look and see where the root flares are going out. And so you can see I am looking at my depth, and then I'm looking at my width. And our width of our planting hole should be roughly 2 to 3 times wider than the root ball. So a ruler or a measuring stick or anything you want to use from a tape measure is really critical to successfully planting trees. So here's our 5th polling question, Gator, if you want to do that one.
Sure thing, here we go. What do you believe is the greatest value of shade trees? Now, this is multiple choice, so you can answer multiple answers. Neighborhood and community beautification, shade and the cooling benefits to avoid air conditioning, prevents soil erosion and reduces stormwater impacts, stores carbon and helps fight against climate change, provides wildlife habitat, or other, and you can explain that in the chat. So go ahead and vote now. I will say, I just did some research for our Ask the Enviro Challenger program, and the cost to water a tree, they recommend it takes about 400 gallons of water in the first year to water a tree is what my research showed me. And so I called TPU, and they said, you know, it's 1 CCF is about $2.13, and that's about 748 gallons. And so I did the math, and it worked out to about $1.13 for 1 year to water a plant, water a tree. So does that sound about right?
It does. I would say it's probably in that $2 to $5 range.
Not very expensive to water a plant.
Yeah, much of it depends upon the timing and how much you give it and when you do it. So constantly the people ask, and we'll talk about watering here in a minute, but the basic concept is you like to water heavily but infrequently. Excellent. Trying to, you know, like nature is doing today. They're watering heavy and then we won't get it for a little bit.
All right, so a couple more seconds here. It looks like everyone's jumping in and answering this one. I'm gonna go ahead and end the polling in 3, 2, 1. Let's take a look at the results. There you go.
Wow, cool. Excellent. Well, it's good to hear about the cooling benefits. People are definitely interested, as well as carbon storage. It's wonderful. All good answers. Okay, excellent. So again, here's a really good example of a planting site. This would be, if I could have done this live with everybody, this is what we would be doing right now. You can see that we made our planting hole roughly 2 to 3 times wider than the hole. We made sure that the ball of the tree was setting firmly on the ground. We don't want it too deep. So you want to have that root flare where the trunk is at the base. You can see those green arrows. That's the area that has to be at the surface. And maybe even a little bit above the surface is okay. One of the biggest challenges I see people doing is they dig their holes too deep. So save yourself enough time and effort, measure the root ball depth, plant it to the appropriate depth. It's better to dig wider, but not deeper. And then the idea of putting the soil back around the tree. We can talk about things like, do you add supplements and things like that? Much of it depends on the soil conditions that are out there. I've taken Tegro and put it around the outside of the tree, not right around the ball, because I want the soil to, the roots to move out of that root ball into the surrounding soil, but I might mix it in with my backfill. And then you want to remove any of the containers, the wrappings, the wires, the ties, all those things. And do you really need to stake? It really depends on where your tree is. If it's an area where it could be windy or it could be damaged by maybe bicyclists or others, you may want to stake it just for protection. And you want to use flexible types of ties. Okay? And there are many available. So mulch. Mulch can be a tree's best friend, and you can see there's a question mark. Okay? On this far side, you can see the tree has sort of a mulch area that's kind of evenly spaced around the tree. It is not like this one where the mulch is piled on one side of the tree. You can see the varmint over there saying, yeehaw, there's a place for me to put in a nest and maybe chew on a tree. So the concept is you pull it away from the trunk of the tree and you go to a depth of 2 to 4 inches, and kind of like a fan shape. It works really well. And I have used, this is one of the best things in the summer in our area, because when summer comes to Tacoma in our area, it gets dry. And if you want to water your trees, the mulch will hold that moisture next to the soil and as well as break down and improve the nutrients there. Watering, it's critical. I know today's a strange day to say that, but it was only a few weeks ago we were breathing smoke and we hadn't had rain for 3 months. And we're all thinking about, is our trees beginning to wilt? You can use lots of different devices, but the basic concept is 5 to 10 gallons of H2O every 5 to 7 days during the dry season. And you can use a hose, you can use a bucket, you can use a watering can. These are called tree gators, those green type things where you fill them up and the water drains very slowly. We've been experimenting with using a bucket, 5-gallon bucket, and drilling holes in the bottom of the bucket, filling the bucket up, and the water actually drains slowly from there and helps the tree get water over time instead of all at once. So, you try different things, but think about 5 to 10 gallons of water every 5 to 7 days during the dry season. So we might have another kind of maybe a Indian summer coming up here shortly. In the fall, you might get a few weeks of dry weather. Just maybe think about giving your tree a little drink of water, just in case. Now, I want to talk to you about our coupon program. So the city of Tacoma, many years back, working with the Puyallup watershed, started a coupon program where people could get $15 off of a tree at a local participating nursery to plant on their property. 2 years ago, Tacoma Public Utilities, Tacoma Power joined the program. We increased it to $30 a tree for the coupon value, where you can get up to 3 trees per your property, and they can be redeemed at participating nurseries. The caveat is 2 things. One is it's only 1 coupon per household for a one-time use. So if you've done it before, you can't do it again. We are exploring with people that have done it maybe 3 years ago, getting the chance again to do it. So if it's been more than 3 years since you redeemed a coupon, we're going to get you that website that's farther down there for you to get that opportunity. If you've never done it, it's a tremendous opportunity to have a great savings on trees. They are not inexpensive when you go to the nursery, so there's going to be always a little sticker shock there, but that $30 does help. And the guy, it is good for 3 trees per coupon. For 5-gallon sizes or larger, 5-gallon container or larger. So that just gives you kind of a concept. There is, the other part about this is it's valid from October 1st through March 31st. We did that time frame because that's the ultimate time to be planting trees in Western Washington. You know you can plant a tree in May, but its survivability is not as good as if it's planted earlier in the year. And if you can get it plus fall, it is the optimal time to get trees in the ground so that they'll be ready to grow next spring and thrive. So our last polling question, and then you can see this, this critter likes pizza with acorns.
Here we go. So, when is the best time to plant trees in our area? Is it spring, summer? Oh, somebody heard him talking. Autumn, winter, and you're not sure, or other? Give you a couple seconds here. A reminder that coupon starts October 1st, coming up just a couple of days, really, like a week.
Right. Yeah.
Week and 7-8 days. So now they get up to 3 trees on that one coupon is the deal, right? So
correct, at a participating nursery. Yeah.
Can be up to $90 savings. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, it's a great deal.
Okay, just a few more seconds to vote. We got about 60%, 65% people voting. So some of you who haven't voted, it's okay. We don't have your names here. We're not going to know if you voted for it. So, all right, I'll give you 2 more seconds. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Let's take a look at the results. Looks like everybody said autumn.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Okay. So the part I want to talk to you about real quick here is, this is really the last slide. So if you've got any questions or if you want more information, the part about the tree coupon, the website that I had on there, and I'm going to see if I can go back. Maybe I can. Yes, I can. There it is. So that tree coupon, you can see it's the cityoftacoma.org/tree coupon. That website is not yet up. It will be up on October 1st. So you have plenty of time. You just want to keep that one in mind. And then what they'll do is they actually physically mail you a coupon like the one above. And you will also get information about planting and tree care and other things in the mail. And then you can take the coupon with you to one of the participating nurseries, and that's listed on the website up there as well. There are 8 different nurseries that are participating in the program, and they will honor those coupons for you. So you get that as sort of an instant rebate. So do we have any questions, Gator?
We do not at this time, although I do have a question. There's also a Grit City Tree program. That's through the city of Tacoma, different from TPU, and that's
Correct.
expired for the year.
Right.
But that does, I guess it's not a question, that does also provide free trees to to those who qualify. They're looking to hit
Correct.
on
Yeah, the Grit City program is kind of focusing on planting trees in kind of public right-of-ways and areas. So it provides those trees, and basically a neighborhood organization needs to get together to get a minimum of 10 trees to get participating in that. And so it offers that opportunity for planting in areas that are public areas.
Excellent.
This program here basically focuses on, this is for your yard. We really want you to shade your home and your property and save energy. That's from the TPU side of things.
Excellent. I'm going to bring Janda back in here, and we can wrap this up. I'd like to thank you, John. It's some great stuff. I don't see any questions. No one has any questions out there. It's a shock.
Okay.
You got so much information. It's great, though.
Okay.
Janda, you're back with us?
Am I muted or am I on?
You're on.
Okay. Okay, so thank you, everybody. I want to let you know that the presentation and some additional information will be emailed to everybody. It may not get out to you until the 1st of next week because we have to download a bunch of stuff and get it up on the website. But the presentation was recorded, so you, friends, neighbors, whomever, can watch it later. And that information will be in the forthcoming email. And then also a reminder, we'll be doing the heat pump webinar in the middle of October, and we will be doing an EV in November. I think we will probably be doing another preparing for spring with mason bees and a couple of the other typical fall workshops that we normally do. So information on that will be forthcoming, and you will all receive an email with the information about this presentation. If you have questions, let us know. Thank you, John. That was really informative, and I learned some new things. So
good. Plus, we got a workshop on pruning trees too coming up in.
Yes, we
So we
did.
want people to join us there too, because
So once you plant it, now we're going to teach you how to prune it and take care of it.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Right.
And then also, don't forget to check out that tree coupon, because that is not limited to just Tacoma.
Right.
So
For anybody in Pierce County.
yeah,
Excellent.
so it's a really good opportunity. So go forth and plant.
What's
Yes.
the quote? The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago.
Yes.
Second best
Second
time
best
is now.
time.
I could show you a pretty awesome picture of my yard that 30 years ago when I took out all the grass and I started planting, and I have this one weeping birch that covers almost the whole entire front yard now. It's pretty
Nice.
cool.
Yeah. Well, thank you all
Excellent.
for participating and coming and wanting to learn about trees. It's always fun. So thanks very much.
Thank you,
Okay.
John. Big help. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.